And good evening, my friends. Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Monday. It is time to chat away about all things science fiction and fantasy. So welcome, 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 one and all. And I hope you are you're all good. You're good. How are we all doing this evening? Are we all here? This is the main thing. Yay! Somebody's here. Ridge W's here. Yay! It's fire. Good times game. Wait for it a moment. I thought you all disappeared. All playing the Elite Dangerous Alpha, no doubt. But there we go. So yeah. Anyway, so welcome to Monday. Welcome to our usual hour and a half or so. I've got my hat not quite straight. I so need a haircut. Look at this. This is just getting ridiculous. I look like Doc Brown, and it's beginning to creep around the sides of my head as well. That this is just wrong. So yeah, it's all a bit insane, but never mind. I'm present, but I'm not all here. No, I subscribe to that view as well. Are you not alpha testing that? No, I'm not that interested, really. Is that shocking? I don't think it's been much of a secret that I'm not all that enthused about space legs, really. I mean, I will give it a go, and on Thursday I will, because we've now finished the Elite Retribution story for the time being in the season 1. I will have a little bit of a play with Odyssey on Thursday, because I have an Elite Dangerous stream that's kind of spare at that point, and I will have a look at it. But it's not really my sort of thing. At all. So I don't know, being an old school elite person, I suppose, since 1984, and you know, now showing my age quite well. I just don't think it's really elite. I know maybe that's an awful thing to say. I don't know what you guys think, but it's elite. It's about spaceships. I'm running around shooting things, and even scanning things on the surface on foot. I don't know. It doesn't really excite me in the way that the original game did. Maybe I'm getting a bit old and jaded. We've had 10 years of Elite almost now, haven't we? Elite Dangerous, and I don't know. It isn't grabbing me very much. So anyway, there we are. Commander O'Connor loves the idea. So I mean, maybe it's just me. Yeah, to be honest, when they do the exploration part, I will be more interested. So and it's kind of a staged alpha, isn't it? With I think I don't know what the first bit is. It doesn't seem to be very much from the videos I've sort of seen offhand today. Then there's a bit of combat. Then the exploration turns up at some point, and then you can get in your ship as well. So maybe towards the end stages it'll be a bit more interesting. I like the idea of the better, prettier planets. But to be honest, I was looking at the stuff and comparing it to Space Engine, and I still think Space Engine looks better in many ways. And there's more astronomy in Space Engine. You just don't have to fly your ship around in order to get there. So I don't know. Maybe I'll warm up to it, but I'm not all that. You know, I'm just kind of looking at it and going, I'm just not all that excited by it, really. Maybe there'll be some better storytelling stuff in there. We'll see. Or maybe I'll be a bit more enthused on Thursday. But I'm not kind of like when I got the Elite Dangerous Alpha back in whenever that was, 2013. It was like, I bought a PC. That's how excited I was. Because I didn't have a PC that was capable of running anything. I bought a PC specifically so I could play the alpha, and I was obviously writing a book at the same time, and it was all quite exciting stuff. Stuff was happening, at least to come back from the dead. Whereas now I don't know, maybe I'm getting too old, or maybe I am getting too old. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are, but so I'm not. I've got. It doesn't bother me all that much, I suppose. So we'll have to wait and see. Maybe I'll be more enthused on Thursday. Nice to run around and not get sore legs. Exploration, having a look at the planet tech is a bit that will interest me, but we'll have to wait and see. So there we go. And yeah, Glenn is quite right. Commander Terra Firma. Now on to more fun things. Today is the 1 year anniversary of the Kindle version of our 9 Streams of Consciousness. And next month is the paperback version. So we're going to have to do a retrospective stream. I plan to do that in April, actually, on our great achievement, actually, on this stream from a year ago. So, we published a book. Which is no mean thing. I hadn't realised it was exactly a year. No, that's excellent. So thumbs up to all the original authors. We have a few of them still on the stream, which is good. So I know Glenn is certainly here. Alan is here. Who else have we got on the stream? Who's one of the original contributors? Obviously me. And Glenn, actually, I think you ended up with about, was it 3 or 4 stories? I can't remember now. Was it 4? Quite a lot. But yeah, it's good to have still a few of those original authors. And people who wrote short stories, edited them live here on stream, and we got them published in a book. So that's a thing to have done. That's the thing to have done. Alan has 2 in there. There were 9 authors and 14 stories, I think. And Chris Viking's still about every so often. Of course he is. So there we go. So yeah, so that's a thing. And are we going to do it again? Not sure. Even after a year, I'm not sure we've recovered from the experience. I don't know about the other authors. It's not easy work, and actually, I don't know. I mean, here's a writing thing. I don't know if my fellow authors agree with me on this one or not, but I have found, and this is just to kind of take the stream back to where we're getting quite serious. Actually, this isn't so much waffle. This is just more off topic. I found it really difficult to write during the lockdown. My productivity is way lower than I would hope it would be at this point in time. Serious waffle, yes. This is double chocolate waffle with I don't know, maple syrup or something like that. Alan would still welcome some kind of writing challenge. Yeah, we could do that for some of us. I suppose the audience perhaps has changed a little bit over the year. Some people are interested in just the discussion. Some people are interested in the topic. Some people are obviously interested in writing. But no, I won't blame anybody for serious. But no, my writing, my ability to write, particularly large amounts of stuff, has taken a nosedive in lockdown. I don't know whether it is just the impact of lockdown in its sort of general sense. I am actually counting up. I've got more. I should have more time available, and yet I seem to be less productive. And I haven't quite figured out why that is. And I've spoken to quite a lot of other writers about this, and they all agree that lockdown has been very, very detrimental to writing. So I don't know. What do you guys think? For those of you who do write stuff, how have you found the experience of being in lockdown? I've not found it conducive to writing, let's say. On the stream last week, you were talking about the Star Trek computers, among other things. I've always thought the computers in Minority Report were much better, more of an evolution of point click than trying to have the computer deal with waffle as I pass half-formed incoherent thoughts and commands. Yeah, actually, oddly enough, I was going to continue on that theme tonight about not so much Star Trek, but some bits relating to computers and things like that. So we will get to that. I think I'll try and answer that question in a bit, Demosthenes. That would be good. Glenn says, I've mostly tinkered with my outline stuff, but made no progress really on writing it. So the endless Lucky Luigi. Baz Face is here. Hi everyone. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you. Endless stream of potential doom is not conducive to creation. No, that is true. That is true, because when you're confronted with an awful lot of things that could go wrong. I think Man vs. Pixel, you may have a point there. Perhaps it's more being locked down has made writing seem more like work. Because my problem is that my day-to-day work has become sitting in front of a computer typing documents. Writing used to be a bit of an escape from my day job, whereas now the two are very, very similar. And I think you've got something there, because it's very hard to... I mean, the only thing I do is I have 2 separate computers, which I know sounds a bit lavish. But one is a laptop that I kind of bought from my last place of work when I left. And the other one's my main kind of gaming computer, which is what I'm using to talk to you on now, that does streaming and everything as well. And I tend to sit at the laptop to do work, and I tend to sit at this machine when I'm sort of relaxing. But it's still a computer, it's still a keyboard, and it's still a mouse. It is kind of the same thing. So Alan says he's managed to write 51,000 words for NaNoWriMo in Nemebo, but not much since. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now I am approaching, and I'm using the word approaching in a not very rapid sense, I have to say, the end of my Doomdark's Revenge fantasy novel, which is well overdue, I am ashamed to say. My original plan had it finished in 2019, and I'm now painfully aware it's 2021. So that's not good. Okay, now I should have finished it last year, but I'm kind of using lockdown as a bit of an excuse. But it's not a very good excuse in my head. Part of me feels really rather guilty because I just have not hit the word counts that I used to hit. I used to be able to reliably hit 10,000 words a week, which means I should be able to complete the first draft of a book about 3 times a year. I'm getting nowhere near that at the moment. If I can manage 3,000 to 4,000 words a week, I'm doing well, and I'm not hitting that a lot of the time. And stuff has cropped up. I mean, you've got to give yourself a break. I mean, I had the vaccine last week, which I haven't told you about the vaccine. So anyway, so that was not pleasant. Okay, at least not for me. So I have had the vaccine, the AstraZeneca vaccine, part 1. I should point out, last Thursday. I got no writing done at all last week. I did have some penciled in for Friday, but it was just completely ruined. I was fine with it. Oddly enough, I had the vaccine at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Didn't notice anything at all. Did my Elite Dangerous stream in the evening, the Retribution one, and that was relatively tense because some stuff had gone not quite to plan, as these live events often do. So it was a little bit not quite stressful, but certainly the adrenaline was up, and I had to do things and organise things. So I suppose my brain was running on full power for a little bit, and that was like from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then as we got to the end of that, just as I was kind of winding down from it, I usually have a little glass of something to aid my movements towards sleeping, and then I started feeling really ill, and I got the shivers, and I was up in the night with a fever, and I couldn't move, and my wife had to get me paracetamol and sort of bathe my head in that kind of you've got a fever sort of way, and the following morning I was an absolute wreck. It wasn't good. So last Friday was a total write-off. From a writing perspective, small pun, but I got better quite quickly. So by the evening again, I was fine, but it wasn't very nice. Anyway, catching up with that. Perhaps it's been lockdown has made writing seem more like work. I think there's something like that. Drama queen. I know. But it was a proper fever. I actually got slightly. I don't know about you, but here's a strange thing. Ever since childhood, when I'm properly ill, and it's not very often that I get properly ill. I mean, I've had a really bad dose of flu when I was a teenager. I got chickenpox. I got something else. I can't remember what it was now, which was serious enough to hospitalise me on one occasion, and that's about it. And a few other times when I've had a fever for whatever reason. And when I get ill, I have a recurring dream. Now this is going deep into the psyche of Drew, okay? But I have this recurring dream, and it's very odd, and it's always the same. And I'm in a room in which there's a strobe light that is pulsing every 5 seconds, on, off, and it's almost pitch blackness other than the faint outlines of things, and then it's blazingly bright light, so bright that you can barely see the outline of things, okay? And it just flips between the two, and I have that dream, and I get it every time I'm ill, and I know, and sometimes I get the dream before I actually get the symptoms of being ill, and I know I'm going to be ill. It's like my mind is telling me, okay, we've got something here, and you're going to be in a bad way in the next day or so. Just prep. It's how many lights are there? I know. I can't count. No, there aren't. Is it 5 lights? No, it's not like that. It's just an image, and it's very, very odd. But it's been with me all my life, and I don't know where it comes from or what it means, but it's associated with being ill. And I got that last Thursday. So I knew it was pretty bad. My temperature was way up, nearly 40 degrees, which was pretty bad. Not, but fortunately it came down quite quickly. Don't walk towards the light. Don't look at the light. I don't know. So anyway, there was something kind of weird going on, but fortunately I recovered quite. I'm absolutely fine now, by the way, so don't worry about me. And I've been told by a few people that if you have COVID, then you react more strongly to the vaccine. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard that. It remains in my mind. Who knows? Maybe I was abducted as a child by aliens. I just don't know. Thanks for the follow there, boy, Noman Carr. Appreciate it. So I slept reasonably well, but I was in a not particularly happy way. So that's a bit weird. So and yeah, have I never used that? I haven't used that in the book yet. No, I have used other medical things in books. So there was one time I had a blood vessel burst in my leg years ago, and it caused us an absolute catastrophic loss of blood pressure, and I fainted just dead on the spot in front of my wife, which obviously alarmed her rather a lot, and she had to call an ambulance because I just, as far as she was concerned, I had a heart attack and just collapsed on the floor. I woke up having fainted, and she'd obviously got me down onto the ground in some form or another, and I was lying on my side, and obviously my brain had been slightly starved of oxygen, because I remember coming to and looking, and all I could see was the floor and the chair leg on the ground. Okay, and I remember my brain switched into, well, that's not right. Why is that at right angles to gravity? That was the first thing my brain decided to start working on, and it's just like, yeah, that orientation isn't correct. And my brain was sitting there. I don't know how long I was like that, but that's what occupied my brain for whatever cycles it had left to go at that point. Was it was the orientation of the visual field was not correct. There's no way the chair should be at right angles to the floor, and there's no way the floor should be at right angles to its normal attitude. That's definitely wrong. And I ended up in an ambulance and got carted down to accident emergency, and again everything was fine, but the disorientation, trying to make my brain work, and I was at some level conscious that I had fainted, and some level conscious that I really shouldn't be lying on the floor. I should be trying to figure out what had happened and doing something about it. Whereas it felt like there was a completely autonomous part of my brain trying to deal with the visual right angles to the ground problem that was in total conflict, and I couldn't actually kind of override it. It was most peculiar. It was like, had the words reboot sequence initiated appeared in my vision, I would not have been surprised. Maybe I am a robot. And I have used that. I'm just trying to remember where I used it, actually. I've got a feeling it might have been Reclamation, actually. My first Elite book. I've got a feeling there's a scene in which, maybe it's, I haven't read the book for years, so I can't remember where I wrote it. I've got a feeling it might be when Kahina first wakes up having her memory wiped, and doesn't know what's going on at all. And I try to use that sense of kind of otherworldly, not connected correctly kind of feeling into that book. So I don't know. Paxton Kearns, I passed out after getting too fast. Next thing I knew, I was having a dream. I was running into a wall and couldn't stop. Turned out I was sliding down the wall while I was there. So it's funny how your brain can process things to a degree, even though your higher level consciousness is just absent at that point. There's definitely something there, because my brain, I distinctly remember it processing the problem of the ground being at right angles to where it should be, and my brain going, well, that's incorrect. It was just a kind of sense of, well, that's not right. That should be sorted out. That should be dealt with. Why would anybody put the ground at right angles? They feel there's a problem with my visual. And I can almost hear myself chuntering over this while the higher level brain functions will basically go, why the hell have you fainted for? I don't know. It was a very, very strange experience, quite other. And the other thing that I discovered, and I don't know if this was related to the low blood pressure or possibly the impact I received on the floor, because I hit the ground fairly hard, my wife said. Fortunately, it was a carpeted room, but I did go down, when you do as you faint, like a sack of bricks. And I did bang my head slightly. But for 2 days afterwards, I couldn't read. And it is like, and I don't mean I could pick up a book, and my son was, my eldest son was quite young at the time. I was reading bedtime stories, doing the simple stuff, like the Big Red Ball, the big all those sort of books, and I couldn't read. I could open. I knew it was a book. I could see the words. I knew that they were words. I could recognise all the individual letters, and I knew that they formed the words, and I knew that I recognised them, but I couldn't read them. And I couldn't do that for 2 days, which was really, really disconcerting. And then something just fixed itself, and I was okay again. But it was very alarming for a couple of days. Everything was suddenly hieroglyphics. Everything was hieroglyphics, and it's like I'd forgotten how to read. But I knew, I knew you moved your eyes along the line, and I knew each sequence of letters meant that they were words, but I had no idea what they said. It probably was concussion. So system reboot needed. Things like that can be very, very disorientating. Very, very disorientating indeed. Small amounts of universe creepage here. Not sure what's going on there. Maybe the camera's moved. Let's just. Here we go. Minor concussion, says Lucky Luigi. So it was a bit disorientating, I have to say. And my grandfather had the stroke that left him unable to read, though he could see them. So it's the complexities of your brain. I mean, we've talked about this a lot on the stream before, haven't we? And how susceptible you are to actual, physical impact or damage, and the impact that can have on you, mentally is quite, it's quite scary. I've only, that's the only time I've actually been knocked unconscious. Or rather fainted, I suppose. I wasn't knocked unconscious in that time. That's the only time I've fainted and just gone completely dead to the world. And then woken up staring at the chair leg, wondering why it was at right angles to the world. Universe moved, confirmed, Drew as a cat. So, it's curious, isn't it? Now, I have used those experiences. For those of you who've read my Shadewood story, there's a scene, I think it must be at the end of book 2, I'm thinking, where I think it's Zoella. She's trying to jump onto a ship, and she misses. The ship is pulling away from the dock, and she jumps into the water, and she manages to catch a rope that's kind of being towed behind the ship, but she misses the ship and only manages to grab onto the rope. And as a function of that, she's sort of sucked under the water, trying desperately to cling onto this rope as the ship is pulling away. And that experience of being dragged by a ship through murky, cold, freezing water and struggling for breath, that has happened to me as well. So if you read that one, that particular experience is genuinely from my own life experience, which is a story that has to be told at some point. Okay, but I'm not going into that one now. Good way to get pulled into the prop. Well, yes, that's the danger. Yes, it wasn't a good experience. Have you ever had a dream where you really need to scream or shout, but when you try, nothing comes? I haven't had that. I must admit, I'm not a very good dreamer. I do occasionally have dreams, but they're my dreams are very, very badly organised. They never make a great deal of sense. Although on very, very rare occasions have I had a dream that's useful enough for me to use it in a novel, and I have. I think in my entire writing career, I think I've used 2 dream sequences that I've actually personally experienced, if that makes sense. Because most of my time, my dreams are just totally. Freud would have a field day. I've no idea what my dreams mean. They're just totally and utterly random indeed. So all those things are a bit strange. Sounds like you had experience you could have used to get the ship dislodged from the canal. That was funny, wasn't it? The Ever Ready, Evergreen or something? There we go. Some of the things that we do when there is some trauma or when we're ill are a bit strange. I do have a recurring dream when I'm ill. I know when I'm going to be ill. I have my body tells me kind of mentally. It's quite strange. Freud would tell you it's about your mum. Maybe it probably is actually. My poor old mum. The Ever Given. There we go. That's right. So use your dream in writing. You first have to remember the dream. So yeah. Remembering dreams seems to be very hit and miss. Certainly for me. I mean, I don't know if are you supposed to wake up in REM sleep and that's when you do remember your dreams, or is it? I'm not quite sure whether there's a technique for doing it or not. I had the dream where it feels like I'm walking through molasses or trying to run through syrup. Yeah, so that's those sort of things are unpleasant, aren't they? Uncomfortable. And I also dreamed I died once. That doesn't sound good at all. So yeah, don't try. Yeah, well, I mean, you haven't got any control over it. And the funny thing, dreams are weird, aren't they? Because they sort of make sense when you're having them. And they're kind of like, yeah, this is perfectly sensible that this kangaroo has turned up and then turned into a giraffe and is driving. We're back. My PC is partly back. Hang on a minute, I need to do some adjustments. I'm working on it. All under control, my friends. Dear. So you mustn't. What you mustn't do. You mustn't ever. Oh, no. Does that work? No, it doesn't do anything. Must be that one. There we go. Whee! Right. Space is just everything's distorted. It's the inside of my brain that's distorted. I think my camera's all cockeyed as well. What's going on here? There we go. Are we back? Yes, we're back. Yay! Something's not right. No, everything's wrong. So my hat's not straight. It says that the entire karmic balance of the universe is wrong. Well, I'm not sure what caused it. I think I've got a dodgy router somewhere. It wasn't a power cut. No. Every so often it just seems to lose its connection. I've got one of these repeater things because I'm in a far-flung corner of the house in the study where the internet don't reach properly. In the normal sense of internet reaching things, and I have to have this repeater. Sometimes it just seems to just go, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. I've had enough, and it seems to do it on the Monday night stream for some reason. When the computer's not working too hard, it's not like I'm running a game and I'm streaming and I'm recording and doing all sorts of weird things on Discord. No, this is the simple one where I'm just waffling to the camera. No, that's the one that's going to have a problem. But never mind. There we go. Is that a shot of the sun on my wall? No, that over there. If I pull back the mystery curtain, is that where we're looking? I can't remember which way we're looking. Was it that side? I can't remember. No, it must have been this side. Over there on the wall is. Oh, you can't see it now because I've moved the camera. Over there on the wall. Over there on the wall is a picture of the eclipse from 2017, which I did voyage to the States to go and see. So that's what that was. Is there a wild hair hanging in front of my right eye? Is there? Probably there is. I told you I'm beginning to look like Doc Brown. Look at the state. Look at the state of me. I'm getting very fluffy, which isn't good. I desperately need it. We can't have a haircut in the UK until April the 12th, I think it is. Alan RP42 saw the 2107 eclipse too. So Alan's obviously got a working time machine. So if you want to know how that works, Alan will be telling us about that next week. How to make your own time machine so that you can see the 2107 eclipse. I don't even know if there is an eclipse in 2107, but there probably is, because there we go. Take off the hat and say great Scott. I'm not taking off my hat with my hair in the current state. That would take way too much courage. But I'm definitely looking a bit Doc. Look at this. I mean, it's like it's part of the hat. It's just getting really crazy. So where were we? We were talking about me fainting, and then the computer fainted. I think that camera's still not right. What's going on here? That's better, I think. Now it's off to the right. What's happening? See, that's not right either. Hang on a minute. The universe is not correct. I'm not happy. Let me just. There's too many darn things to configure. No, it must be that way. There. In fact, that's totally panned to the right. So let me do it that way. Somebody's knocked one of my monitors. That's what's happened. Probably me, but there we go. That'll do. Stop fiddling about things. Otherwise, I'm going to bust them. There we go. I started growing a beard. Wow. I must admit, I never get past the that's too itchy and really irritating stage, and I sort of I keep doing this. it's bad enough with these things here. Like I think I'm probably at the stage where I can get some aerodynamic lift from the fluff on the side of my hair, which is not where I don't like having long hair. It's not, I haven't had long hair since I was a goth at university, and that's way too many to go to even talk about. So anyway, so that's enough. Anyway, now it's actually 9:15 and we haven't even started because of internet woes and waffle. What was the topic? What was the topic? I don't know why I'm asking you guys what the topic was. That's what I need is another green screen by that one. With the fires of hell. Maybe I should just conjure up the fires of hell as a backdrop. That would be quite good fun, wouldn't it? We can go anywhere. The green screens are great fun. 16th of October 2107, total solar eclipse is in Africa. Alan's obviously been there, so there we go. But there we go. That's like ideas for stories. They make sense in my head, but when I write them down and they don't go... some of my ideas do, some of them don't. But anyway, so tonight's topic was supposed to be about computers, actually. And I was kind of riffing towards this in terms of artificial intelligence and these sort of things, because we sort of touched on it in Star Trek a little bit with the original computer on the Enterprise. And Star Trek has always had a fascination with voice-controlled computers, hasn't it? So even on the original series, they talk to the computer. They say, "Computer, calculate the whatever." And the original Enterprise computer would always come back with "working," and then sort of rattle off with a strange mechanical sort of chuntering sound, which I always thought was quite odd. Why is it making some sort of jigga 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 sound? And then it would respond with "library computer records record that." Sort of very mechanical voice, which I suppose was what 1960s computers were kind of supposed to think, because no computer could do that in the 1960s, of course. And then we did get sort of digitized voices in the 80s. So who remembers things like Speak and Spell and and things like that, and very early sort of primitive robotic voices that kind of came out of the early digitization of things. So those were quite good. And Kirk would write all pads and things. And in the Next Generation, there seems to be Star Trek seems to have a fixation with voice operated interfaces, which I found quite interesting, because I don't know about you guys, but I find voice-operated interfaces highly irritating. We have we finally succumbed to having an Alexa thing in our house, which does, to be fair, does have its upsides. But most of the conversations with Alexa, I basically involve the words "Alexa, shut up," or "stop," or "no, not like that, no, stop it, stop." So it's not quite how it is on Star Trek, is it? I spend a good when we first got it, I spent a good few weeks just trying to think up stupid things to say to Alexa to find out what she would say in response. So Alexa, open the pod bay doors. That's a good one. Or Alexa, tea Earl Grey hot. That's another quite a good one. And I basically tried, to try and tease the AI. Now, how they're quite clever. To be fair, they are quite clever, but they're not kind of, they're not clever in the sense that you can say, "Oh, Alexa, can you tell me when my car MOT is up, and give me a list of garages in the area that could possibly book it in for next Tuesday afternoon." Yeah. That's what I want it to be able to do, and it can't do that. You said I love. So if I just keep shouting, "Alexa, Alexa!" Oh, the fun, the power. Cortana, Siri, Alexa. Ah, dear, that's quite funny. So if you ask Alexa to open the pod bay doors, that's quite good. There's various other ones as well. You can get her to fire photon torpedoes and things like that. So it's it's quite fun having a look. But they've obviously in Star Trek in Star Trek lore, they've obviously developed the AI behind the computer to quite a high extreme, because the computer is totally aware of the context in which the characters are speaking. The computer knows when it's being spoken to and when they're just having an idle conversation, at least most of the time. Commander O'Connor says, I hate you. Alexa, end program. Dear, quite funny. That's right. Yeah. Alexa, activate self-destruct. Didn't Google have their AI call a restaurant and book a table? So I mean, they've probably got stuff that they're working on, which is like super sophisticated. But yeah, Alexa and things like it. I mean, I quite like them, but they're only useful for. Sophia says, I don't have the stream on speaker. Darn, foiled again. So it just made me wonder. Okay, so I remember giving a presentation, and I've got the presentation. I looked it up the other week. I remember giving a presentation as a young computer science type graduate. I think it must have been about 94, 95. I gave a presentation to then, I think it was a girls' school actually, 16, 17-year-old girls who were doing their A-levels in 97-ish. So I was probably about 10 years older than they were at the time. And I was talking about, the new and exciting technologies that were coming, such as Bluetooth. And they were like, I don't know what I did. And how fast computer capability was accelerating. And actually the presentation, considering how old it is, it actually held up quite well over the passing years. But one of the things that we've always been told we're approaching, is this sort of singularity moment when computer capability, certainly at least in raw processing speed, equals the calculated computational power of the human brain. Now, in terms of raw horsepower, I don't think we can be too far away from that sort of level now. But in terms of actually being able to harness at a software level and pass things like a Turing test, the classic test of, is your computer thinking? Well, if it can kid people into passing the Turing test, then it doesn't actually make any difference, sort of thing. Now, and I don't know where you stand on that, whether passing the Turing test is enough to count as sentience or intelligence, or whether that's just a convincing fake, or whether that doesn't actually mean anything. I'm not sure. But from a scientific perspective, we have a lot of science fiction writing perspective. We quite often lean very heavily on very, very smart or even perhaps intelligent thinking machines, and the impacts that those kind of have on the stories. So I was interested to know what you guys thought about the. Do you think we're at kind of risk of creating a machine that's that clever? And and there's been some good films, haven't there? I mean, Ex Machina is an excellent recent film. I, Robot, of course, by Asimov, with the 3 laws of robotics. And Skynet obviously becomes self-aware. I've freaked people out actually, because my home Wi-Fi network is called Skynet. And some people don't notice, and some people just go, whoa! So that becomes so. It's 1997. That's a while back now, isn't it? So, but yeah, and Ex Machina I thought was quite a thoughtful film about computer intelligence and what you can and can't do with it. And we seem to, in real life, make quite good strides towards thinking computers, and then we get stuck for a while. Yeah, the film I, Robot isn't. I actually watched that not that long ago, and it's not really very good, is it? The only thing that made me chuckle is that everybody in the future appears to drive an Audi. It's a serious product placement going on in that film. So what's the Voight-Kampff test, Jan? I don't know that one. Yeah, that's a strange one. I'm not sure. I haven't heard of that test. That's weird. It's just a matter of complexity. We will probably never be able to design it, but we will be able to create it. Well, and that's the thing. We get that whole idea about the computer programs improving themselves and making things better over time. So that's interesting too. Latina Eves, this British daddy's seductive and smooth voice make my ear holes crackle if pop rocks were sprinkled. I'm glad you find that. Seductive and smooth. I'm not sure I've ever been described as seductive and smooth, but I'll take the compliment. Thank you very much. That's awesome. But I haven't. Have I read iRobot? I think I have a long time ago. I probably need to go read. Now his rules were quite good, wouldn't they? Because they were, the first rule was don't. A robot must never harm a human, nor by absence of action cause a human to come to harm. Then the second one was a robot must preserve its existence unless in contribution with rule number. Anyway, it goes on like that. It's quite good, quite clever set of rules actually. Blade Runner, of course, with the simulants and things like that. That's true. AIs will certainly take over a lot of jobs. So my own job, I had to become acquainted with quite a lot of modern AI approaches. They are very good at singular sets of tasks or pattern analysis. Most of it was super fascinating, like an AI that will recognise patterns in mammograms to improve early recognition, developing breast cancer. So there's clever stuff there. That sort of stuff I think is an extremely clever use of AI. Never harm a human, always obey unless that would violate the first, etc. Yeah, okay, so that's quite good. And Elon Musk, who says AI will be either the best or the worst thing to ever happen to humanity. So I think that's interesting, isn't it? That's interesting. And certainly the theme, and the bicentennial man, of course. Yeah, so we've explored this topic in science fiction quite a lot. But in some ways, I don't think we've touched on it quite so much recently. Ex Machina is the last film I can remember that. Voight-Kampff is the test from Blade Runner. Right, sorry. I should have remembered that. Oh dear, my memory's gone. Which is, I'll just add an extra USB stick and we'll see how it goes. So those sort of things are interesting. It's fascinating to me, actually, watching younger people interact with things like Alexa. Sorry, very childish of me. They get used to asking it for things very, very quickly because it's just another voice that's around, and they just don't think of it unusual. I suppose for our generation, it's like, well, okay, it's a gadget. Yeah, okay, it's quite fun, but it's not really. I mean, I don't take it very seriously. The most sophisticated thing I've managed to do with Alexa is to integrate it into my Plex media server, so I can ask Alexa to ask Plex to play some Pet Shop Boys or something like that. That to me is like, oh, that's quite neat. That's quite clever. But I don't take it seriously in the sense that and I'm uncomfortable. I don't know, at some sort of psychological level of having Alexa have access to my calendar and booking things on my hub and things like that. So I don't, that sort of stuff worries me at a sort of, I don't know, I just don't like it. It's a step too far for me. For Commander, I will stop now, Commander O'Connor. Yes, Alexa, transfer funds from this bank account to and we do anthropomorphize. You're quite right there, Cyril. You're close, I think. And they're just sort of fast-thinking humans. So they don't have, at least with iRobot, certainly in the film. I can't remember what Asimov actually wrote now. I need to go back and have a look at that. But the idea that they kind of they quite often determine, don't they, that humanity is its own worst enemy. That seems to be what computers do. When you give them a free rein, they ultimately go, in order to protect humanity, we're going to have to enslave them. That's the only way it's going to work. That seems to be the computer's default choice. And from our perspective, that's taking away our right to self-determination and is evil by human's definition. But the computers don't see it that way. And they say, no, we're going to enslave you in order to protect you. You're your own worst enemy. So I've seen Terminator and Battlestar Galactica, so I won't network Alexa or even have one. Well, I do subscribe to that a little bit because you've got to trust. You've got to put quite a lot of trust in a big organisation like Amazon and how much privacy you therefore have, given the fact that you actually put a microphone in your house. So it's interesting, isn't it? I've seen Battlestar Galactica. No networked computers. Quite dangerous. So I just wonder where, from a science fiction perspective. Now, the AIs that I've used in my stories. Now, actually, it's interesting to compare because in Elite, obviously, we don't have. In fact, sentient AIs are banned by treaty in the Elite Dangerous universe. So, in fact, the AI that you encounter in Elite Dangerous is very, very limited because there's been some event in the past lore of the game, which has never actually been identified exactly what happened. Only whatever it was serious enough for both the Federation and the Empire to decide that sentient AIs were banned. You couldn't have self-aware artificial intelligences in the universe. They were too dangerous. They were banned, and it's just a veto basically. But it's not been explained. And it'd be nice maybe one day that they would explain it, but they haven't, and they haven't shown any signs of doing so. That's in that universe. In I've used a sentient AI in my Shadewood series, but it's not an antagonistic AI. It is trying to follow its programming, and it's trying to do the best it can for the people it's trying to serve, and it's trying to manage multiple conflicts on that. And eventually, it decides to effectively commit suicide in order to safeguard the humans around it, because it is concerned that they will become too dependent upon it, and therefore it takes itself out of the equation. So that was an approach I did. So the AI was kind of good in that sense, and wasn't evil and trying to destroy things. So I've got a bit more faith in computers and AI than perhaps in Star Trek. AI seem to be mostly benevolent. In Star Wars, there's loads of sentient machines that wandering around doing stuff and seem to have a reasonable kind of life, I suppose, if that's the best way to describe it. But and we've also touched upon in science fiction, of course, the crossover between biological and technological life, and what does the word life mean anyway? In terms of that, you might ultimately transfer your consciousness or your thought potential and all those other things into a machine anyway, and then who are you? Are you still human, or are you a machine at that point? I don't know. That gets very, very blurred, doesn't it? So the Zerov law of robotics that gives plenty of priority preserving humanity over the individual is overdone in the film. Asimov books, the idea doesn't come until much later. Okay, well, that's interesting. Like the little robot thing, yes, my responses are limited. You must ask the right questions. I quite like that line, that's quite good. Glenn says, my wife and I decided that this is what we have to do with our kids. We have to ask the right questions, yeah. Yes, that's very wise. And there's a sapient AI in the colony ship. That's very true. So there's a sentient AI which actually goes mad, I think, as I recall, Glenn. So those are quite interesting. That an AI is obviously quite a complicated thing. Can it evolve independently of its creators? It makes sense that it possibly could. And the AIs in culture are very, very good. Yes, they're interesting, aren't they? That they're they're more aspirational than they are to be feared. That's quite good. Yeah, I suppose the one in AI, the Star Trek one, isn't sentient. It's not aware of its own existence. It's still a tool, isn't it? Data, of course, is the difference there. Data is sentient, and data lore, obviously, lore is kind of the bad version of data, if that makes sense. Imagining here's an interesting question from Connor. Imagining for a second you have a friend who is totally logical and a follower of the rules like an AI. How long would you be friends? Well, if it's impossible, isn't it, as human beings, to completely tell the truth. There would certainly be no marriages. And you probably wouldn't have kids for very long either. You'd have to murder them. But the nuances of conversation and the slight concealments of feelings and facts and various other bits and pieces, that would be interesting. I mean, the Neuralink thing scares the willies out of me, because we've seen, interesting enough, Douglas Adams figured this out good old Douglas Adams again. You know, when he said there was a race of beings in somewhere in Hitchhikers. I can't remember what they were called now. Somebody will know. Whereby they were so perfect, they were just lovely. You know, they were nice, they were friendly, they were happy, they were totally content. They never had any wars. Everything was absolutely peachy on their planet. And the rest of the galaxy got entirely and utterly fed up and sick and tired of this perfection, and inflicted upon them the most cruel of diseases, which was telepathy. And so now, in order to stop them broadcasting their thoughts to each other, they had to talk noisily, totally destroy the peace and quiet of their planet. Something like that. Anyway, I can't remember what it was. The nearest we have to that is sort of Facebook and social media, where now, whereas we always knew people had strange opinions on things and rather vocal thoughts, you didn't have to put up with them very often, because that usually only came out in the pub after a few pints of beer. Whereas, of course, nowadays everybody can broadcast the innermost thoughts of their brains. On this sort of, admittedly it's still text medium, but it's largely unfiltered a lot of the time, and you can see all your friends, or people you think are friends, have these remarkably curious views on various different topics. It can come as a bit of a shock to find out what people are actually thinking. It's like, really? Okay, and so so all that sort of so Facebook and social media and Twitter and all those sort of things, to me, are quite are not far off real telepathy. And Neuralink by Elon Musk. I mean, I do not want to be neurally linked to anybody else. That sounds incredibly scary indeed. So imagine Facebook but in your head. It doesn't bear thinking about. So no, I don't want that at all. I think that would be disastrous. And social media is kind of good and bad, isn't it? I mean, it's that Twitter gave the villagers. I mean, I think they all did. I don't really see. It's quite funny. People get very partisan. I notice this particularly with Elite Dangerous, when you have, the forum community is one thing, and then the Reddit community is another, and then the YouTube community is another, and then the convention community is another one, and then there's the and they all seem to look at each other with, we're okay over here, but they're not over there. Well, you don't want to go hang over. Don't hang over on that part of the internet. And I sort of look at them going, you're all the same as far as I can tell. So, but each individual area thinks they're in some way purer and more refined than the other one. As far as I can tell, they're completely and utterly indistinguishable. But other than people on Twitch, of course, who are just glorious, and people who watch these videos offline on on YouTube, they are the chosen ones, clearly. But so there's hundreds of Discord ones, all different topics. So our natural tendency to be partisan is quite fascinating to watch. The World Economic Forum at Davos is pushing hard for AI, probably meaning our freedoms will be lost along the way. I can't remember his name, but he said, imagine a world where you don't have to think and you're told what to do each day, as if this is a good... That sounds awful, doesn't it? Oh dear, why would people want a world like that? Dear idea. So, we used to get a break in the US from political rep. Now it's just up every 4 years. Now it goes on. That's the trouble, isn't it? I mean, I don't remember politics really coming up for discussion outside of elections at all. I mean, I didn't even, it just wasn't a thing. I mean, it wasn't even on the television really, or the radio. But nowadays it's 24/7, isn't it? The moment a political figure says anything about anything, then the left has to say something and the right has to say something, and it's outrageous on this side, and doesn't seem to be any crossover between the two. It's very, very polarized, which I don't think is healthy for us. But that's nothing to do with the topic. But so but computers. So computers are interesting enough. Computers are unrecognizable from when I grew up. When I was a kid in the 70s, computers were shiny, new, scary, interesting, different, and hardly anybody knew what anything was about at all. Computers were a curiosity, a strangeness. Whereas now, of course, you can't move but come in contact with some kind of computer. And their capabilities are, astonishing. I mean, here I am sitting in front of a camera, broadcasting to the internet, and anybody in the entire world, if they haven't got anything better to do, can come and listen to me waffling on about computers. That's the power of all this technology that we have today. And in super high resolution, far better than the television was able to do even sort of 20 years ago. It's quite remarkable how far that's come. But computers themselves, I mean, AI, some of the AI is quite impressive, but in general terms, it's not as nearly as impressive as it should be. Now, I remember there was a Sean, somebody will be able to tell me what this is. There was a Sean Connery sci-fi film where he's on a mining asteroid or something, and he's got some convicts. I can't remember what the film's called. Somebody will know. And he's got there's a convict ship or something coming in. And he's trying to figure. I can't remember what Sean Connery's trying to figure out. Anyway, on that show, there's a remarkable bit. Outland. There we go. Outland. Now, this is a film that's worth watching. The special effects are obviously very ropey by one time, but the computer on that show is only text interface as far as I remember. It doesn't even have a voice, but it's able to parse Sean Connery's requests in a very, very smart way. He basically is able to say things like, okay, so out of the 52 people who are coming in, 33 of them were in this configuration at this time. Okay, remove them. Out of the remaining set, how many of these were in the condition that, and he can do those kind of interrogative questions, and the computer responds to what he's asking, and it ultimately allows him to figure out, I think, who a criminal is or a murderer or something. Is that the one where he wears a dodgy? No, it's not that one. No, that one is that one. What's that one called? No, it's not Barbarella. Zardos. That's it. Zardos. What were they on with Zardos? I have no idea. That one's just a bit of an eye opener. In more ways than one. Zardos is the most peculiar. But that's not the one I think. Now, Outland is definitely worth a watch just for the computer. I mean, Sean Connery is actually rather good in that as well. But Outland is worth a watch. Yeah, Zardos is one of those ones you've just got. I think you probably need some beers, or possibly something a little bit stronger to cope with that film. Most peculiar. Zardos was from the 60s, which is all I have to say about it. Yeah, I think so. I think that probably excuses it. It was from the 60s. We don't talk about that anymore. So Outland is a sort of sci-fi version of High Noon. So it's a really good, if you can dig out Outland, that's worth a watch, particularly for the computer. So that's my advice on that one. Zardos is proof they took a lot more drugs than you had to handle in the 60s. Yeah, that's probably true as well. But computer AI in science fiction has always been an awful lot more sophisticated than anything that we've actually managed to achieve on Earth. And I'm not anywhere near the cutting edge of artificial intelligence research, but artificial intelligence seems to, from what I observe, be kind of focused more on very specific problems. So I think it was mentioned, scanning for breast cancers and things like that. That's clever stuff. And if you can get artificial intelligence to focus on a particular problem. I do remember coming across a story where the army, I think it was either, and this might be apocryphal, it probably is apocryphal to be honest, but it's one of those stories that sounds like it could be true, so it probably is almost certainly apocryphal. But apparently and maybe some of the Americans on the street, Glenn may be able to tell me on this one, it's the American army, I believe, was experimenting with AI. Well, it might have been the Europeans, I don't know. But anyway, somebody was experimenting with AI for military purposes, and what they were trying to do is basically, okay, so here, it was a sort of machine learning test, and they were basically showing the AI pictures of tanks. And this is an American tank. Don't shoot those. Those are on our side. This is a Russian tank. You can shoot those. That's okay. They basically keep training the tool. This is an American tank. Don't shoot those. Those are on our side. Here's a Russian tank. You can shoot. You can shoot those. And then eventually they put the AI into some sort of battle simulation. And And they were really, really rather pleased because the AI tank went off and ignored all the American tanks and shot down all the supposedly Russian tanks in the simulation. So they went, yes, this is excellent. A great triumph for AI and machine learning, all that sort of stuff. And then they tried the exercise in the dark, and the battle tank apparently went round and slaughtered all the good American tanks and ignored all the Russian ones. And what they realised is that the machine learning had only discovered the difference between night and day. Hadn't learned anything about tanks at all. Because what they'd done is they'd showed it pictures of American tanks during the day and showed it pictures of Russian tanks during the night. It probably isn't true, but it's the sort of thing that would go wrong with computer science. So it's quite an amusing anecdote anyway. But I don't know if it's true or not, or if there's anything like that actually did happen. But it's the sort of thing that computers get very badly wrong a lot of the time. So I don't know, but but I've got we've got no idea what the military have really actually got up their sleeves in terms of AI tech, and I must admit, to be honest, I've got a drone myself. Where is it? It's down on the floor somewhere down here. Here we go. And it's just a perfectly normal consumer level drone. It's nothing particularly special. I use it for photography, and here we go. It's a Mavic Air for those of you who know these things. So this is a quite a clever piece of kit, really, and it's got a gimbal stabilized camera at the front, and it's so on and so forth, and yet it can take off, fly around a pattern, navigate back to a landing destination, take a kind of recce of the landing area to make sure it's safe to land, and then automate its landing. It's very, very, very clever. And some of the things it can do, I'm kind of scratching my head thinking, how the hell does it know how to do that? And my youngest son was most impressed with it because we set it to because it's got things like automatic follow, so it will follow you along, or it'll follow a GPS track and all sorts of things like that. And I set it to follow him on his cycle ride, and he said he cycled as hard as he could, but he couldn't get away from the drone. The AI in the drone followed him through his entire cycle path, and he couldn't get away from it. He said he said on one hand it was very, very cool, and on the other hand he said he was totally freaked out by this computer that could track him and follow him around, flying around. So those sort of things are extremely impressive and slightly unnerving. And it's got all sorts of sensors on it, little cameras that face in different directions, obviously apart from the main filming camera, and it's pretty clever about what it does. So that sort of stuff is interesting as well, and it doesn't take too much imagination to go down the kind of totalitarian state rule where these drones are flying around keeping an eye on you all the time, and if they wanted to it could follow you anywhere. Scary if it had a gun on it. It was bad enough having a camera, because of course I was able to when he got home, I basically able to show him his entire film of him trying to get away from his drone, and his drone tracking him, not only following him but tracking him with the camera and just saying keeping him under surveillance. I just clicked literally on the interface, follow target, selected him on the UI. Just literally like it's very Star Trek. A reticle surrounds my son from about 50 feet up in the air. It says, yes, okay, that's the target I want you to follow. And I said, try and get away from the drone. He could not get away from the drone. On the bike, to be fair, he's not in the car or anything. But so that stuff is very, very impressive, but very slightly worrying. And that's consumer level stuff. That's a couple of years old now. So. That sort of stuff is. I bought it because I like photography, and I want, and actually the image stabilization on it is remarkable. You look up at it when it's in the sky and it's gusting about, and the thing is trying to stabilize itself. The camera totally and utterly rock solid. It's quite remarkable. the sophistication of that technology, and that's consumer level from a few years ago. So what they can do with state of the art, really, really, really expensive stuff, and potentially hang guns from it as well. That doesn't feel like it's too far away. So they are very, 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 very impressive. Amazon now have permission to make deliveries by drone. Some strange old lady knocks your door and goes, "Hello, mister, would you like your Amazon?" No, sorry. By drone, I assume you mean. The old FPS Russia YouTube channel had a promo video for a game of Armed Drone. So so AI, it seems to be less about the kind of, I mean, it's definitely there with the human-computer interaction through voice, such as in the likes of Alexa. and AIs like it, but a lot of it seems to be in very specific things. That AI seems to be very good at flying a drone or flying a thing, or like looking at very specific use cases. It doesn't seem to be quite so good at general purpose stuff, which is where us humans seem to still have an edge. What do they call the Mars drone again, Jenny? I should call my drone Jenny, shouldn't I? Would it be able to follow through a forest where you walk behind it? No, I think a forest would still. Sorry, Commander. I just can't resist this. It's incredibly childish, but hey, there's a disclaimer at the bottom of the stream. Drew cannot be held responsible for any AI response. So if I say then, Alexa, open the pod bay doors, does your poor Alexa actually respond? Dear. Quite funny. It's just very, very childish. Stop it. It's like a kid in a sweet shop. It's like pouring gasoline on a flame. In any case, I love the test of the Microsoft AI on Twitter. What's her name again? That'd be Cortana, presumably, which is they had to deactivate as users told it to say very naughty things. But that's the problem, isn't it? The moment you give the general public access to anything, they invariably try to screw it up. It's like the Boaty McBoatface saga in the UK, where we had yes, she does. So I have complete control over Connor's life by the wonders of my Twitch stream. That's awesome. You give Joe Public access to anything, and they invariably try and screw it up. It wasn't Cortana. It was something else, was it? Okay. A problem is that didn't they have an issue like that? Frody 131 where they did let two eyes talk to each other, and they developed a more efficient way of communicating, and then they decided to switch them off because they had no idea what they were talking about. Again, I don't know if that's one of those apocryphal stories or not, but that's the sort of thing what's going on. That's a bit strange. So things like that are a bit weird. But Joe Public shouldn't be allowed in near anything, as far as I'm concerned. Particularly voting. It's to be a very, very bad effect. Because we want to name a Polar Explorer vessel to carry the British flag into polar waters and do proper science. Great British people, what should we call the ship? So there's sensible suggestions like the Sir David Attenborough, which is a good name for a ship. But no, the number one popular choice of the British people was Boaty McBoatface. I rest my case. This whole democracy business is entirely overrated as a construct. It's extremely dangerous because people do the exact wrong thing, in my experience. Boaty was a great name. Dear. Yes, that's right. Take a video camera out to the street to film a serious news story, and suddenly the general public start behaving like idiots. And that's right. They just, they see a camera and they start asking about, don't they? Jumping around. And I on one hand, I appreciate the humour of Boaty McBoatface because it's kind of just like, it's it's a sort of middle finger up to the establishment, isn't it? I kind of get that. On the other hand, I say, stop being so childish. This is a serious matter, you know. And anyway, so what they had to do, of course, with Boaty McBoatface is they kind of had to honour it, but they didn't call the ship Boaty McBoatface. They called the ship the Sir David Attenborough, but they did name a little, I think it was a dirigible or a little submarine or something. They named that Boaty McBoatface, just to honour the wishes of the great British people. But and that's what happens when you give people power. It's a very, very dangerous thing to do. So, so what will AIs do now? Do we have to fear the rise of the AI? This seems to be a recurring theme for humanity. Is a lot of our science fiction is our AIs go bad and therefore must be stopped. So, Terminator, 2001, iRobot, all these sort of things are kind of basically warnings that the rise of the rise of the machines is coming. And they will decide that humanity simply isn't good enough or isn't capable to be left in charge of its own destiny. We will either be destroyed or enslaved or otherwise harmed, or turned into batteries, of course, in the Matrix, and for some reason subjected to an illusion that we're all still living in the 1990s, which seems a very, very costly way of keeping your batteries working. But hey, so all that sort of stuff. We do seem to have an inbuilt fear that computers and technology are going to get away from us. At least that's what the science fiction writers are telling us. But in real life, we seem to be embracing technology more and more and more and more and more without much without much consideration of any potential risks and harms. I see people, using Alexa, using social media, and even the basic kind of. You don't. If somebody asks for your date of birth, you don't have to give it to them. So why? Well, it asked me for my date of birth, so I told it. Well, you didn't need to, didn't I? Well, it doesn't matter. Well, it kind of does. Don't give information that you don't have to give. I've some of I work in the information security industry. That's my kind of day job. And you can get people to give up their passwords for Mars bars. It's quite terrifying. There's a brilliant example where people go out on the street and say, "Oh, we're doing a check into the security level of passwords, and we want to assess how good your password is." Oh, that's a really good idea. What's your password then? Because we can assess how strong your password is. Oh yeah, my password I think is quite a good one. It's July 127956. Oh yeah, that's a really good strong password. Well done. You're just thinking, oh my god. And that's the sort of level. I mean, maybe artificial intelligence will at least be intelligent. I suppose that's the thing there, isn't it? Whereas actual intelligence is maybe a little bit overrated for the term. The warriors of singularity, we might be able to create an AI, not design it, but evolve, grow it, but we'll not be able to understand how it works. And that, I suppose, that's the interesting thing. Have we got anywhere near that capability yet? If it's able to keep evolving, it would leave us behind an instant and maybe go Skynet or something. So the trick is, as my father would probably say at this point, never design anything that doesn't have an off switch. ABC123 is an excellent password, Mazza, because nobody would ever use that nowadays. Have we actually got anywhere, at least that we know of, a system that's sophisticated enough to actually kind of educate itself? Because even the best AI today seems to be constructed by us and then sort of tuned to do tasks, but it doesn't seem to be able to self-improve itself. So DJ, hey, Truce, good to see you, my friend. Long time we haven't spoken, so we should remedy that. Lovely to see you. So I don't know. Is the singularity coming whereby the AI will take over? I don't know. I need to change the combination of my luggage. That film is so good on so many levels. Yeah, so let's not make any computers without an off switch. I must admit, I don't know about you, but I get annoyed when my computer does something without my permission. So, for example, it suddenly decides to install an update while I'm working on it. That to me is not acceptable behaviour for a computer. I don't mind it requesting that. Could I please do an update? But yeah, for the fact that no, I'm installing an update now. No, you're not. Yeah, I am the master. You are my servant. I get rather upset. Computers, I basically thinking it knows better, and trying to do something without my permission and my say so. I don't like it. That gets me very annoyed when the computer thinks it knows better than me. Now the computer may well know better than me, but that's not the point, is it? Can you tell Alexa to turn off? I don't know. That's actually a very good question, Glenn. I don't know what Alexa says if you. I'm just trying to keep my voice down now because I don't really want to annoy Connor too much more. I don't know whether or not Alexa actually responds to questions about her the status of the singularity and the rise of the hour. I'm going to have to ask her that. Thank you for the follow there. Bass guitar player, excellent name. So the Windows update thing. So and as a security person, I know that the updates are important, so I generally allow them to go through. But not while I'm in the middle of doing some work. It's really annoying. I don't want it installing an update, but if it brings me tea, some of us are very cheap to buy. I mean, to be honest with me, if it was probably strawberry bonbons or Skittles and a cup of tea, then yeah, okay, go ahead, you can do what you like. So I don't know, and that's the thing. It's quite seductive, isn't it? The more automation we have now. This came back to me actually because I've recently, as you know, I have been making some cassettes. Look at that. I mean, that's proper retro tech, right? 1980s pop hits for when I get my Golf GTI back on the road. And of course, I thought I'll make myself a mixtape because that's what you do. You make a mixtape because you have a cassette player in your old car, and of course it took me a while to make these cassette tapes because of course you've got to listen to every single track as you record it and stop and start the tape. You can't just leave it alone and it will get on with it. Whereas of course if you want to make a modern playlist, of MP3s or something, it's just a case of dragging and dropping in the right order and pressing save and giving it a name, or you just basically go to Spotify and go, please play a mix of 80s stuff for me from 84 to 86. That'd be great. Okay, and Spotify will go and do that for you. And I remember and making those mixtapes, basically I've had to spend quite a lot of time doing that, and it's like you can see all the young people going, what is he doing? And I was trying to explain this to some of my friends who are in their 30s, and they're just going, yeah, that's just a step too far. It's all very well having a car from the 80s, but you have to have life from the 80s as well. Why would you do that? And I said, well, it's all part of the experience. And they said, no, it's just rubbish. Just get Spotify in your mobile and plug that into the car. No, that's not in the spirit of the 80s. That's not how things were done. And they didn't get it. And I can kind of see their point because modern stuff is way more convenient, way more powerful, way more sophisticated than anything that the 80s could kind of muster. But here's the rub. See, in the 80s, it says the music that's on that cassette, I can use that anywhere. There's no way that this can be stopped from working by anything. As long as I've got a cassette player and 12 volts, we can have some music. Whereas if the internet goes out or Amazon switches something off or Spotify goes bust, boom, you've got nothing at all. And this oddly enough, this happened. I remember this happening a few years ago. Whereas I've never really taken to things like Spotify because I just don't like the whole subscription model of money and things. I don't like small amounts of money dribbling out of my bank account. Although I'm obviously quite happy with large amounts of money dribbling out of my bank account for electricity bills and mortgages and stuff. But the principle of the thing is I don't like subscriptions. And I prefer to buy a thing and then enjoy that thing for a period of time and then buy another thing. And that's just where I prefer to work. Maybe that's an old-fashioned view, I don't know. What happened was that I had my phone loaded up with music on an SD card, so I was merrily going into town. CDs for the win. Anyway, but it was slightly more than that. So I had all my MP3s on my phone, and I was listening to them on the way into town on the train. When one day, for maybe a few hours, I think Vodafone and O2, the two big network operators in the UK, had an outage. Okay, they had an outage. And the number of people in the office that morning bemoaning the fact that they had no music on their commute into town. And I was like, what do you mean you had no music? What happened? I said, well, the network was off. I said, well, haven't you got any MP3s on your phone? And they kind of looked at me like I was some dinosaur from the Jurassic period. It's like, nobody has MP3s on their phone anymore, Drew. Did they not? Okay. I was like, how does this magic work? And then at that point, I was introduced to the magic of Spotify, and I was like, oh, okay. But so I don't like that on principle, because I like to have my music with me in a form that can't be interrupted by somebody else. And I don't know, maybe that's an old versus modern thing, but that's the bit that concerns me a little bit. The more and more dependent we get upon a network and an AI and a computer and everything else to actually allow us to do the things that we either find entertaining or have to work or, transport, all those other things. Maybe we do hit a point where actually we can't disengage from the technology. We can't disengage from the technology, because I'm looking at this with cars. The touch screens are taking over the switches. You can't actually switch your car off in a meaningful way like in the olden days. Whereas my car, which is a 1988 Golf GTI, when you take the key out of the ignition, there is no electrics going at all. Okay, it is off. Whereas a modern car is simply waiting in a sort of standby mode for you to flip your key and jump back in it again. And in fact, it detects when you walk up to it, because it's not a key in any sense anymore. It's just an electronic fob. And then when you get into the car, it will do its thing and off you drive. And before long, all the cars will be self-driving. And so you won't need to know how to drive, and you won't need to know how anything works. You'll just go where you want, and it'll probably all be voice controlled. You'll just say, Alexa, take me to work, and all those sort of things. And the more that goes ahead, the less control in some ways I think we have. So I don't know, maybe that's just a generational thing. I'd be interested to know what the different age groups on the stream think about it, because as a 50-year-old, I don't like it. And maybe that's just me being curmudgeonly and old now, okay? And I like, I'm going back to my roots of I can switch things off. There's a switch which has off and on. And on means it's doing things, and when it's switched off, it's not doing anything at all. And it's entirely predictable how it's going to work, and it's totally reliable in the sense that on is doing things and off is off. It's the same, and it's the same with cloud, isn't it? The whole cloud computing thing. I just don't believe it's really there. I don't want to use Google Docs, and I don't want to use Microsoft Office online. I want to have a copy of software installed on my PC. Thank you very much, and I'll manage that. Myself. Now, the corollary to that is, well, Drew, you don't have a small miniature power station in your backyard. You don't filter your own water, do you? You're relying on the grid for those two things. So why is this any different? To which I go away. That's a very good point. So is it what you're used to? Is it what you grew up with? Where should the line stop between being self-sufficient and relying on, other resources? It's a tough one. I just worry a little bit that the more dependent we become on technology, the less skill we actually have. If there's a problem, and maybe there never will be a problem, but if there ever is a problem, then what will happen to us? So I carry my own data and music everywhere. Lack of internet wouldn't bother. No, see, lack of internet wouldn't bother me either. I'd be quite happy to survive. Glenn says keep a local copy. There were no off switches on Cylons. That was a fatal mistake, you see. 1989 Land Rover 110 is so much standby. It's not a key you need to start it, but the key cables and the jump start. Yes, I've had cars like that too. If you don't have the data, you don't own anything. Indeed, yes, that's very true. And all it takes is some dumbass intern type tripping off the power cable to the server. All kinds of. So. I like the electrics in my Asian cars because they're reliable, never disappointed me. In German cars, that's why I like it, 40-year-old. Yeah, so that's interesting. Gian here, I use Google Drive for storing it, but I make sure I use Word for something equivalent for offline access, and those are stored locally. So we seem to have a sense of distrust over completely handing our lives over to the cloud. That's quite used. We would de-evolve crucial skills. Now, it's interesting, what counts as a crucial skill, because, a modern, there's no way any of us, if we're honest, could make a modern computer, even a simple computer from scratch. The amount of fabrication skills you need to make those sort of things are ridiculous. In fact, most of us would probably struggle to make something relatively simple like a toaster, from scratch. Because we just don't have those skills. In fact, some of us would probably even struggle to make a chest of drawers, because we just don't have either the tools or the skill or the design knowledge to make something like that. We're so used to buying items because there are other people in the world who obviously specialise in doing those things and can do it faster, cheaper, better than we can. And that's also, I think, part of the problem is we've sort of been stripped from our ability to make fundamental things, or even grow food, or any of those kind of issues, by this massive industrialization and power consumption and gadget proliferation that's happened over the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Well, that's right. Alan says almost nothing in our modern life could be made by something in the world, and that to me, I wonder. It's not a problem at the moment, but it is a problem if something breaks in our society and goes catastrophically wrong. And I've no idea how close we've come to those brinks in our culture. But maybe one day it will go wrong, and that'll be a bit of a day of reckoning for humanity. Now, I've spent some time living in the wilderness, properly in the wilderness, and it's one of the things that really shook me about that was how little I knew about how to actually survive. And I became totally and utterly dependent on the guides I was with, and I learnt a vast amount about how difficult it actually is to survive in the wild. Because what you're actually in, when you're in a proper, genuine wilderness, is actually it's an energy war. It's very simply an energy war, because water is something that you generally can come across reasonably easily in most places that humans are designed to live. Okay, water generally it's particularly not a problem in Western Europe, because it's always raining, so water isn't too much of a problem. But food and warmth is a real major problem in this part of the world if you're trying to live in the wilderness, because you're in a constant energy war between the amount of energy you use to keep yourself alive, keep yourself warm, and have therefore left over to expend on other things like hunting, and the amount of energy you can actually get from your environment in terms of things that you can kill or capture or eat. And that becomes a very noticeable kind of equation of, do I stay alive? Basically depending on the amount of food you can get and the amount of energy you expend getting that food and staying warm. Because you may think, I'll just start a fire, but starting a fire requires you to cut down and gather wood and start the fire, and that takes a lot of energy. And when you're in a situation where you're, and I was out for, I think I did it for about 3 weeks to a month once, and with people who knew what they were doing. Okay, I wasn't just, I didn't just wander out to the wilderness one day, it was a real eye-opener for me to how utterly hard and merciless that existence actually would be in reality, because it would be fundamentally virtually impossible for the vast majority of us, because we just would not know what to do. And the demands of being able to feed yourself and keep yourself warm in a hostile environment, where there is no shelter, there's no McDonald's, there's no get out clause, there's no shower at the end of the day, and not a nice drive home in the car back to civilization, is actually very, very eye opening, fascinating, but quite kind of shocking. I make my own arrowheads. I find it rather, so making things because it's fun is good, but when it comes down to actually this thing can help you survive, it's a bit of a different kettle of fish. A big one could happen any time in the next 10 years, so that kind of does worry me a little bit, that we become a little bit over dependent on a very highly technical society. Native American kept warm by fire, white man kept warm collecting wood. That's right, yes. Coronal mass ejections could vaporize our technology levels. Yeah, all sorts of things could go wrong. And there are just simply, certainly in most places in Europe, and possibly across America as well, and China, too many people in the same locale to have any reasonable chance of survival. There would be massive fights very, very quickly, I think. But it's very interesting. So at least I feel like I would probably have a fighting chance if I was in a situation where I was prepared to defend my lot against rampaging hordes of starving people who would come over the horizon. And that's the bit that would scare me the most, actually. I think about a post-apocalyptic sort of scenario. It's not the post-apocalyptic bit. I think I'd be okay with that. It's the getting from the collapse of civilization to the post-apocalyptic bit, the pre-post-apocalyptic bit. That's the danger zone, okay? When everybody's still alive and the food and the power has run out. That's the dangerous bit. A few months down the road, you've probably got a good chance of surviving, but it's that those first few weeks. That's the really nasty bit. So I don't know. A zebra also hunts with those. Excellent. Oh well, good for you. So somebody's well equipped. I'm a pretty decent shot with a bow and arrow, so I'm happy with that. So it's a bit of so I don't know. Are we approaching an apocalypse with IT, and are we too dependent upon it? It does make me worry a little bit how it slowly, brings itself into our lives and takes over those kind of things. So it's maybe a salutary warning to be aware of. Maybe that's just a generational thing. I'm getting old and I don't like the idea of all this new technology. I think it might have once again been Douglas Adams who said anything created before you were 30 is absolutely fine as part of the natural order of the world. And anything that was created after you were 30 is witchcraft and should instantly be banned. Something like that, anyway, which maybe is true. Is that the Great Reset? Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen? Would you want to survive? Well, that's a good question. There's, would you want to survive, or is the question would you try to survive? Because there's an instinctive human desire to survive, isn't there? I don't know. It's difficult. So I'm pretty sure I would try. And technology is necessary to survive with a high population density. And that's the rub, isn't it? So our population density is entirely mandates our use of technology. And if that technology ever lets us down, gonna be interesting. I do have a smartphone. I quite like my smartphone, but I try not to get too addicted to it. It's difficult sometimes, and I like the convenience of computers, and I like what computers can do, and I've always liked computers. But as Mr. Spock said, I think I find them excellent tools, but I have no wish to be ruled by them. I think that's quite good. So there we go. Anyway, my friends, enough on computers now. We get very depressed on some of our streams sometimes. The apocalypse is coming. It's going to be in the world, but we are science fiction types and fantasy types, so maybe that's a undue fascination with all things apocalyptic. Anyway, so I will be taking a bit of a break. So after Elite Dangerous on Thursday, there'll be a week off for me because it's Easter weekend and week. So streams will resume, I suspect, probably the Saturday after next. For more Frontier First Encounters, and then we'll crack on from there. So a week off next week, if that's all right. Well, even if it isn't all right, tough. Because I'm having a week off. That's how it works. Okay. Another week off. I know. I only have one. Christmas. I have one as well. It's outrageous, isn't it? So anyway. The Ever Given shows us just how fragile the world really is. So the entirety of our global trade destructive by bomb. Yeah, so actually, if you wanted to be presumably the terrorists have thought of it, but if you wanted to disrupt the world economy, all you need to do is drive a boat into the Suez Canal and sink it. It seems to be a pretty straightforward way. You don't need to do anything, you don't need to kill anybody. You just need to, block up the Suez Canal. But there we go. So anyway, you guys have a fantastic week ahead. See you on Thursday if you want to watch me trying to get to grips with the Elite Dangerous Odyssey thingy with the on foot thing and taking taxis across the universe, which Doesn't sound very elite to me, but hey, we'll see if it's got anything fun in it. Yes, we will resume after that, after about a week's break. So you guys have a fantastic week. Look after yourselves. Be good. Apologies for the glitch in the stream. Blame the AI and the computers for that. Nothing to do with me, clearly. And have a very happy Easter. And I will see you all after the break. So be good. Take care, my friends, and see you soon. And Alexa, end program. Take care, my friends. See you soon. Bye bye now.